Member of Parliament from St. Anne, Southeastern, and Opposition spokesperson on Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. Ms. Hanna.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, parliamentary staff, Jamaicans, the evening has been long, and I really want to thank you for taking the time and the patience to stay to participate in the sectoral debate, because it is important. So thank you on behalf of myself and the people of Southeast St. Anne. Madam Speaker, there are some significant moments in our lifetime that give us cause to pause and reflect on how we do things, how our actions have been impacting one another, and ultimately, how our country's development and whether or not our approaches are leading to positively change the course of the people's lives we were elected to serve. Since I came to this House 14 years ago, I've witnessed a radical shift within our body politic. No longer are people prepared to wait for solutions predicated on outdated approaches designed 20 years behind 20 years ago, but their understandable impatience for positive transformation to their livelihood, for themselves and their families, does not tolerate tribal dictations of who did what when, or rhetorical excuses for why after decades their roads can't be fixed, or why they can't have running water or pipes, or worse, why they can't have more money to buy the necessaries they dream of. For my part, I acknowledge my own dissonance to just how strongly these emotions were felt, even in my own constituency of Southeast St. Anne. I was busy doing programs and projects that I thought the people needed, and when the COVID-19 pendulum swung and hit their already fragile socioeconomic lives with a sudden catastrophic blow, their palpable hunger for solutions relevant to their survival showed in their apathetic participation in our democracy. These attitudes weren't unique to Southeast St. Anne, but a reflection of the national frustration which led to only 37% of our electorate coming out to vote, the lowest in our recorded history of general elections. I want to thank God and the people of Southeast St. Anne and Jamaica for teaching me invaluable lessons for moving forward in my representation of them. I also give thanks to my husband, my family, my friends, my Southeast St. Anne team, my colleagues on this side of the House and on that side of the House, whose daily support has sustained and consistently inspired me to unswervingly dedicate my life to the harsh vicissitudes of representational politics. Madam Speaker, this pandemic has had a devastating impact on all Jamaicans, but more so on the masses of our people. And it would be irresponsible of me and all of us if we did not recognize that our ability to sustain ourselves during this period was in large part due to the stable macroeconomic and in particular the low interest rate environment and the ability for the banks to adjust and assist businesses in 2020. It would have been impossible when I entered this House in 2007, when the Bank of Jamaica Treasury bill rate was in double digits at 11.88%. Today, the 6-month Bank of Jamaica Treasury bill rate is 1.5%. And even though that is the case, Madam Speaker, I want to amplify the call of the opposition leader and member from South St. Andrew, and to say that there needs to be more fiscal space made available, especially to our working poor, to give them more breathing room so that they can feel less stifled and helpless. You see, the truth is, Madam Speaker, that Jamaica must realign with virtues of humanitarianism. Let me use this platform as well to thank our international community, whose assistance to us has been needed and welcome during this very challenging period. To Japan, to India, Cuba, countries in Africa, Korea, Canada, the United Kingdom, the United States of America, our heartfelt thanks and appreciation goes out to all of you. Madam Speaker, the magnanimity of these countries and others to step forward to assist Jamaica is indicative of the revered respect we hold within the global alliance of nations. However, it really is an indictment that we have had to rely on bilateral acts of friendship for our robust response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This realization should be the catalyst to reverse our obsequious patterns of diplomacy, which have been practiced over the past 4 years, which has been counterproductive to Jamaica's foreign relations history, and if not discontinued, will see the costs clearly outweighing the benefits. You see, Madam Speaker, to make Jamaica and Jamaicans great, we must be friends to all and enemies of none. We must reach out more to add value to long-standing bilateral and multilateral dialogue. We must forge new alliances with trade agreements and reset mediocre ones between ourselves and our international partners. We must act with courage, doing what's in the best interest of our people rather than following like sheep to advance the interest of others with unclear motives which are often disguised as defense of democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. Madam Speaker, I've had numerous opportunities over the past year to speak about our recent acts of servile diplomacy. So rather than revisit history to repeat myself at great length, I want to use this opportunity to focus on foreign trade, which with the right policies provides the greatest opportunity for our citizenry to improve their wealth and quality of life, Madam Speaker. You see, we have to go beyond resilience. Madam Speaker, Jamaica needs to go beyond a reactive response. To that extent, there needs to be resilience, and it must be built on a foundation laid by the Member of Parliament from East Central, St. Andrew, our former Minister of Finance, between 2012 to 2016, and the Portia Simpson-led government. Hold on. Whose courage, Madam Speaker, reversed a 40-year deficit spending trend to create an economic environment with a 7.5% fiscal surplus, reducing our debt to GDP ratio from 140% to manageable levels, which is the foundation on which this low interest rate environment has been built. This low interest rate environment is a primary reason that prevented our Jamaican economy from being wiped out in 2020, and we really should give credit where credit is due. And I want to say thank you to Dr. Peter Phillips. Beyond resilience, Madam Speaker, is the socio-economic development and the failure of the government, is the absence of a foreign policy which focuses on economic development. This is best illustrated by the lack of promoting an international trade policy. And, Madam Speaker, I am encouraged by the member from Northwest St. Andrew, our current Minister of Finance, who continues his fiscal discipline by staying the course and introducing key policies to take Jamaica forward. But I want, Madam Speaker, I want my country not only to progress with anemic economic growth, I want my country to be a global titan, competing with global economies on the world's stage. And I believe that that can happen if we cooperate across the aisle. And we saw it today with our women taking the first step to making that happen. Our responsibility as policymakers, Madam Speaker, is to create an economic climate and mindset that will grow the Jamaican economy in a way that increases the per capita income for all our citizens. In the 14 years I have been here, we really have not moved the wealth needle forward. And our objective should be to move our grassroots to the middle class and our middle class to internationally competitive rates of wealth. This will not happen with speeches. And what's more, raw talent is simply not enough to monetize the opportunities available. We need a structured plan with specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-bound situations to take us there. We have repeated for decades that our international trade policy is export-driven, and this position was reiterated in a recent policy document, and I quote, "At the national level, Jamaica's trade policy can be said to always be export-led, even when the country introduced an import substitution policy in the 1950s. End of quote. And that's from the National Trade Policy 2019 by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. But, Madam Speaker, this policy is in name only, because in reality, we have nothing to show for it that did not exist 50 years ago. Let's be honest, we have a market protectionist mindset, which has caused us to be a producer of samples, Madam Speaker, for export. We have not focused enough on building our proactive approaches in the international trade arena, as we consistently import 4 times more than we export in terms of goods. Our import substitution policy, which is broad-based and still being pursued today, is a dead end for several industries and has not created an export-driven economy or led to any significant export of manufactured goods, despite substantial duty protection. For example, Jamaica started producing rum in 1749, and almost 300 years later, it is still our primary manufacture export. In 2019, it represented 79% of our manufactured export earnings, and our largest producer and exporter of rum used to be Jamaican-owned, no longer. So the profits are also exported. Our total imports for 2019 were about $6.4 billion, which was 4 times larger than our exports, as approximately $1.6 billion US dollars, Madam Speaker. Guess which industries still account for our traditional domestic earnings? Rum, aluminium, bauxite, sugar, banana, coffee, mining, and quarrying. They have remained the same for decades. In Jamaica, we are still talking about general plans and policies, approaching the concept of national economic growth and employment creation for our people in the same way for 50-odd years. The existence of JAMPRO, the Economic Growth Council, the Ministry of Economic Growth, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Coordinated Unit for Foreign Trade, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, the National Export Policy, the National Trade Policy has not done much in producing any real tangible results. A closer look at the data, Madam Speaker, for 2019 reveals that Jamaica is actually lagging behind other countries in the region for export of goods and services per capita. Trinidad and Tobago leads us, and with a population of 1.39 million, it exported 9.1 million. As a matter of fact, if you go through the data, other countries blessed with the kinds of resources, talent, and people that we have are doing much better than us in terms of exports per capita. And I would call on persons to read when I present the presentation so that you can actually see the data for yourself. Madam Speaker, in a world of free trade, we must establish specialized niche markets. The countries that have created true wealth for their people are the ones that have developed export markets for goods and services. Jamaica will never create true wealth for 3 million people by just selling to our 3 million people. Our market is simply, Madam Speaker, just too small. Madam Speaker, we need an urgent plan, to structurally transform Jamaica's economy into an internationally competitive, value-added export country, focusing on goods and services in which we can identify our global competitive advantage, controlling all the inputs from raw material and all the inputs in our value chain from the raw materials to the finished goods. If we do not do that, the rest of the world will continue to imitate us without flattery, without royalties, and without economic benefit to our people, our Jamaicans. So it's time for strategic leadership. And when I talk about strategic leadership, I'm not talking about partisan strategic leadership. This Parliament is a place where we come together to design approaches for the benefit of our country. Other countries have done it in less time than I have been a member of this House. They've increased their people's wealth by 100% within a 10-year period. Here are just a few examples. The United Arab Emirates with non-oil exports. And so they have other kinds of services. Vietnam, Panama, Ghana, Colombia, the Domrep, and I could list several more. But the point is that Jamaica is underperforming based on the value of our brand. You see, in the world, the strategic location of our island, our great soil and agricultural flavor, the immense potency of our culture and music, our solid financial infrastructure, the beauty of our island, and most importantly, the intrinsic talent of our people makes Jamaica a world-class destination and product for export. Madam Speaker, the world is a very different place today, but we are thinking small and stuck in a 1950s mindset. When will we really have the confidence to take the risk to produce for 15, 20, 25 million, 30 million people outside of Jamaica? I'm not interested in blaming anyone, and that is the past. But it's time we focus jointly on the future, which means, Madam Speaker, that the government, the opposition, the private sector organization of Jamaica, all of us need to get together to build our exports in goods and services with the potential to make Jamaica and Jamaicans wealthy. Madam Speaker, there's a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and miseries. On a full sea, we are now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves or lose our ventures. In other words, it's time for Jamaica to seize our opportunities for economic growth solutions in global trade that has been made available to us. Good things don't come to people who wait. Good things come to people who get up and get them. Madam Speaker, with your permission, let me present a couple good opportunities we need to get up and go after. One of them is value-added agriculture. There are over 200,000 farmers in Jamaica, representing the largest source of employment. Logically, if we improve the incomes of our farmers, we'll improve their purchasing power, which will in turn drive growth in our entire economy. Our goal should be to improve the standard of living for all our small farmers in Jamaica. And Madam Speaker, through linkages, their linkages with other sectors increase employment and income in all our sectors in the economy. The growth of several developing countries is propelled by agricultural imports. In Jamaica, we are increasingly dependent on food imports, not realizing our potential for exports. Instead, the prevailing policy has resulted in reduced exports with no rationale for crop selection. It has price instability for farmers and consumers, little or no cold storage, and we end up dumping 30% of our small farmers' production due to a mismatch between demand and supply. I want to move forward to say that the ravages to the economy from COVID emphasize the need to stimulate and diversify our economic base more than ever. We already have a world market for Jamaican Scotch bonnet. It is estimated that the global demand by 2026 for pepper in the world will be US $3.77 billion. What we don't have is a national processing facility where small farmers can bring their pepper for processing to the value-added products the world wants and yearns. Achieving this efficiency would allow us to move up the supply chain even into more specialized markets towards more value-added products at premium prices. Madam Speaker, in February of this year, the President of Ghana went to Switzerland and said to the Swiss government, look, we're not going to supply you anymore with cocoa beans from Ghana. And the cocoa beans from Ghana are what the Swiss have been using their almost their entire life to produce the expensive Swiss chocolate that the world loves. Ghana says, look, we're going to be producing it. We're going to control the raw materials from our inputs to the finished goods. And if you really want to come and have chocolate, it's going to be produced in Ghana, because the Ghanaian president recognizes that in order to create wealth for his people, he needs to control and create value-added products. And so we need to follow the Ghanaian example. We shouldn't be exporting our raw coffee beans. We should be producing the coffee drinks here, the energy bars. We should be doing the beverages, the cosmetics, the liqueurs. All of those things should come from Jamaica. So, Madam Speaker, let us build a national agro-processing facility. Let us list it on the Jamaica Stock Exchange and seed it with capital Let's appoint competent management to run the place and divest it to our Jamaican shareholders, similar to what we did with the Wigton Farms. By taking this decision, Madam Speaker, we would signal to the world the importance of the Jamaican brand to us, while simultaneously protecting it from being exploited by other countries. The time is urgent for us to become global producers of Jamaican branded products the world loves and yearns. Madam Speaker, I know the member from West Kingston is a bit troublesome, so I'm asking to you to just keep him underneath your arm for me. Madam Speaker, the global ganja cannabis market is expected to reach $97.3 billion by 2026. I want to repeat my call for us to build a Jamaica National Ganja Lab responsible for promoting Jamaican ganja as the best in the world, while driving the scientific research for cannabis and facilitating Jamaican nutraceutical products for export. We need to stand up for our brand, Madam Speaker. And so therefore, if we don't, so many other countries are legalizing this. By the time we get to it, it will be a commodity on the world market, and we will not be able to guarantee the prices. Therefore, and this might be a little controversial, but instead, Madam Speaker, of us spending $50 million on a new parliament, which is about 7 billion Jamaican dollars, why don't we take the money and really build a national agricultural facility, incorporating a national ganja lab? We don't need more space to be efficient and competent as parliamentarians. What we need is political will, research, and time to go forward. Postpone it. Postpone it. Madam Speaker. No, Madam Speaker, we can have a discussion about it. But the truth is, if we have those kinds of resources, we really should be developing things to grow the economy. Madam Speaker, I want to propose Jamaica as a performance stage. We've been living in a digital world for some time, but COVID-19 has intensely accelerated our inexplicable and inescapable immersion into it amidst the lockdowns and curfews. 1 year ago, nobody could have told us that we'd be doing habitual Zoom meetings and that Zoom as a company would be worth more than the 7 largest airlines combined. Today, YouTube users are the largest online platform and account for 1/3 of the world's population, viewing 1 billion hours of content every day and uploading 500 hours of it every minute. That is a lot of content consumption, Madam Speaker. Furthermore, with the popularity of sites such as Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime, the global streaming market size, valued at $342 billion, is projected to grow to $843 billion, Madam Speaker. Now, there are 2 convenient truths about living in a digital economy. One is it makes international trade easier, and 2, content is continuous. They want content all the time. And so in 2007, the total value added by copyright-based industries, literature, music, theater, film, media, photography, etc., accounted for US $192 billion in exports from the United States. By 2017, copyright exports had exceeded $2.2 trillion from the United States. The contribution of arts and cultures to the United States GDP is valued at $804 billion, Prime Minister. And it exceeds construction, transportation, warehousing, travel and tourism, mining, extraction, agriculture, fishery, forestry. This represents a per capita income and revenue of $2,000 per person, 2,400 US per person, which based on Jamaica's population would be about $7.3 billion US dollars. Let us for a moment target just 1/10 of that revenue. In other words, our culture as an industry would have the potential value of $731 million US dollars. At a very minimum, the Ministry of Culture should be allocated 2% of this value per annum. In other words, $14.6 million US dollars if we're really going to build the cultural and creative industries, Prime Minister. A review of the 2021-2022 Jamaican budget reveals only Jamaican $178.4 million or 1.23 million US for the promotion of this area. 1/10 of the allocation it actually needs to be effective. Madam Speaker, our major investments for cultural performance spaces were in 1912 and in 1958, with the Ward Theatre and the Little Theatre. And the truth is, we continue to boast that we're a cultural superstate. And the rhythm of how we do things, Madam Speaker, makes Jamaica a platform. So let us apply a realistic budget to the Ministry of Youth and Culture, task them with building a state-of-the-art equipped buildings in every parish for daily training and rehearsals, get the ASHE model, because it's a good model, and we should begin in our tourism capital, Minister of Tourism, by expanding and converting the Montego Bay Convention Center and put all the digital inputs in it for the big concerts that are necessary, and perhaps even a casino, and rent time on a satellite. The satellite is easy. You can do that. But it's a training of the talent that's important. And beam up our Jamaican content on a satellite and let the rest of the world download it for a fee. They want it. And I would go further, that we must simultaneously, through the Ministry of Finance, remove all barriers to entry for the entertainment industry and restructure the waiver system with incentives that are currently onerous and bureaucratic. It's an unnecessary imposition to ask a young guitarist or a young band to provide audited financial statements, or even to say, look, we're going to charge you duty on all of this equipment. Because if you waive those fees and they do well, you'll actually make more money from GCT than the duty that you levy on them for the equipment at first instance. Madam Speaker, I want to move to some unrecognized Asian opportunities. And I want to say to the Minister of Tourism and the House that between 2000 to 2018, China's middle class is estimated to have grown from 3% of its population to more than 50% of its population. Twice the population of the United States. Over 700 million people in China have more disposable income, and they want somewhere to go. They like leisure, they like food, they like entertainment, they like travel. As a matter of fact, in 2019, 170 million of them left China and visited other places in the world. And, Madam Speaker, most international companies have recognized this purchasing power and have gone after it. HSBC, one of the world's largest banks, have deployed about 3,000. They're going to hire 3,000 new people just to go into China to access the disposable income of this new middle class. Now, between 2002 to 2006, Foreign Affairs Minister K.D. Knight went to China, opened our embassy there. He went to the PSOJ. He said, look, let's put a diplomatic desk there for you and a private sector desk because we want to start the trade. We actually brought, at the time, Vice President Wu Yi. She started the language arts program up at the university to teach Mandarin. All of those things were in train. We started to work to make sure that Jamaica had what is called approved destination status, and that we had even a trade show in Jamaica to get the rest of the Caribbean to get that approved destination status. We went to Fidel, and we said, look, since you're the only transportation in town, let us work through you. Madam Speaker, it's now 15 years later, and it would appear that successive administrations have not followed through on building out these initiatives, and it's time to follow through. The Chinese and most Asians rely heavily on their cell phones instead of cash for all their purposes. So we need a high-speed internet and a good broadband service. I don't even want to look at you, Prime Minister. With interest rates at all-time lows, Prime Minister, it is now time to invest in the real economy. not just apartment buildings, but in critical infrastructure to grow our economy. The Jamaican government should not just operate their policy, but should incentivize and facilitate and stimulate with seed capital if necessary. I beg you, please. Moreover, they should implement the proposals developed by the JMEA that primarily are administrative and will have no cost really on the budget. And these are, namely, to adopt and implement the international trademark system. I know Dr. Dunn is working assiduously with others. The Madrid Protocol, review and remove the primary production and export costs applicable to produce by the JCRA, and finalize the implementation of the Cabinet decision in early 2019 to remove some of the items from the list of items required for import and export licenses and permits. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, politics, and I quote, is increasingly divisive, and governments are increasingly dysfunctional, leading to a number of policies that simply don't work.
The member's time for speaking has expired.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the member's time be extended by 15 minutes to allow her to complete her presentation. I know.
The question is that the member's time be extended by 2 minutes to allow her to complete her presentation. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. Madam Speaker, and I quote, politics is increasingly divisive and governments tend to be increasingly dysfunctional, leading to a number of policies that simply don't work. The fault line is inequality and our own failure to move beyond our differences and self-interest and act for the greater good. End of quote. This, Madam Speaker, makes people suffer. When Jamie Dimon said this recently, and he's a CEO of JP Morgan, I thought he was actually talking about us. He was actually speaking of the United States of America. You see, the urgency of our crisis is blinding and suffocating. The direct link between our anemic economic growth and violence, and even the way we are pursuing our educational policies and how people are being educated, is demonstrated with Jamaica being in the top 3 murder capitals of the world, coming second to last in CARICOM for literacy, and ranking second in the world for femicide, or the murder of women. The inequalities within our nation's education system, barriers to entry for the small man and woman, the terrible infrastructure planning, wasteful spending, the ineffective social safety nets can all be fixed with the right focus and policies, Madam Speaker, for economic growth over the next 3 years. But, Madam Speaker, we must give a stimulus to our people, as we have never done before, because it is in their hands that the future of Jamaica rests, and through their hands that the nation's prosperity is achieved. You see, during the 19th century, Kodak was a leader in the photography industry. At one point, Kodak had 85% of share in cameras and 90% of the world's market share in film. For some, a Kodak moment was a special moment. And even though Kodak, Mr. Sasson at Kodak, developed the digital camera, they didn't realize how big digital would become. And they had a flawed foresighting of how to pursue those situations. So they patented it. And so by 1975, when they did that, they just underestimated what would have happened. And so subsequently, the iconic Kodak recorded and filed for bankruptcy in 2012. Jamaica must move immediately to commence a process of strategic global repositioning of ourselves based on an accurate foresighting of global opportunities and a careful analysis of the goods and services in which we can or have sustained competitive advantage in a rapidly changing world, Madam Speaker. Our unique value-added agricultural, cultural, and entertainment products and services from our people's talent can grow our economy and improve the socio-economic fabric within communities. We must train our people with the skill sets and give them the incentives and the tools of trade so that they can invest in these niches to succeed in exporting any one of these products at even 1% of the world's market share would transform Jamaica to the country for which we all yearn. Madam Speaker, we've been operating with our eyes wide shut for too long, relying on the residual spin-offs of brand Jamaica, without stimulating its sustainability with realistic resources and enterprising government policy. Blind optimism has never been a good and successful economic model to pursue. Kodak missed its opportunity, Madam Speaker, with the digital revolution. Let us act fast so Jamaica doesn't miss our opportunity to grow forward. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
House Leader.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank the member for a good presentation. Yes.